Hello, everyone. Well, it's Sunday. This is not your normal Sunday morning show. And my normal co host, Mr. Jeff Doherty, the Christian whistleblower, I think he's down in a place where he's got no internet. So, wherever he is, I think it's in Florida. Great place to be. So, Jeff, enjoy it, my friend. Enjoy the time off. Look forward to seeing you back here next week. Well, I just want to say good morning to everyone. I'm sitting up here. Typically, there's another pilot over here, and so today I'm driving it. So I hope you're doing good. I just invoke great favor upon you and full restoration into your life. Nothing missing, nothing broken be found, and enjoy the journey, folks. We're a part of what they call the Milky Way, big place. There's other bigger places in the neighborhood, and enjoy the ride. No matter what lies on the other side, this one offers us a unique perspective, isn't it? Let's see. Where do I want to start out with? Well, hello, Robert. Good to see you, my friend. Hello, Lois. Susan, Luna, good to see you. Sylvia, all those who normally watch Jeff over in his channel, welcome over here. Hello, Steve. Good to see you. Dave as well. Just saying good morning to everyone. Thank you, moderators, and thank you for everyone for tuning in and supporting us. Jeff and I have been doing this this is our second year. So, yeah, yeah, sometimes things work. That's all I can say. So this week was an interesting week, particularly those of us who live in the Midwest. And hey, the weather is going crazy, but I have a picture I want to show you how intense this storm was. This, folks, what hit us here in the Denver area on Wednesday with that unprecedented blizzard. As you can see, this is the wind gradient and pressure gradient of this storm. Folks, that's a hurricane. Now, I know it was on land, and I know they call them land canes. Yeah. But it was unprecedented. If this is what awaits us in the future, yikes. I just want to let everyone around the world see that. I was at a place yesterday, and I was talking to the young lady at the receptionist desk, and she lived in Fort Collins, I believe. Yeah. And the eye of this storm went right over Fort Collins, right? And she said, right over their house. And the way she described it is exactly how it happens with a ocean front like this, which we call hurricanes. The eye wall went right over the house. She said it was raging, and it was raging. We went through it here in the Denver area, and she said it got sunshiny, dead calm, and she said 3 minutes later, bam, the second. So, yeah, what's going on? I don't know. Obviously, there is some serious changes in the weather. And when you look at that kind of event, and for those of us who went through it, it was my first full-fledged blizzard. And yeah, it was an experience. Don't be outside in those things. That's all I got to say. Snow gets everywhere. It's just like dust. It just embeds itself into everything. So anyway, for those of you who went through it, hope you got well, and no loss of power for a long period of time, et cetera, et cetera. So, all right. Lot going on in the world today. All of us are aware of the events that have taken place in a country where most people would have never thought. It's one of those things about our species. Excuse me. Let's see, the deep dive in the alien interview. Robert, you like that? It's good stuff, man. It really is. Actually, I see a tie-in. You know, our species, we're such a, I don't know, at times, we are a beautiful hope. But in reality, we're a bunch of putzes. I don't know. I see those events that take place, and I don't understand that state of consciousness. That's a place that I don't know if anyone can really fully understand. And it kind of gets down to this question, this fundamental question about our species. Why is it we do this to ourselves? I watched a show, what was it? The story of Sarah Winchester. For those of you who know Sarah Winchester, and she was the heir, her husband, invented the Winchester repeating rifle. And the Winchester is what won the war for the Union states. The Confederates still had the old ball and cap guns, and the same thing happened to the Native American Indians. And anyway, Sarah was an empath, and she carried the burden of the spirit of murder that her name would be forever attached to, Remington, Winchester. And she built a house in San Jose, and she built onto that house for 22 years, up until the time she passed on. The house is probably the most haunted structure in the United States. I challenge any empath to go there. It's in San Jose. It's open for tours. But the movie that they did on this was quite interesting. The premise of the movie was the board wanted to see if she was mentally competent, and they hired a doctor to go out and do a mental assessment. Well, quite interesting. The doctor had actually been shot by a Winchester and died. Was dead for 3 minutes. And when he got to the house, she explained very succinctly why she built so many rooms that made no sense, because they were all the spirits of those who had been harmed by that mechanism that her husband invented. And the house was very interesting, lots of spirits. So it gets back to this thing. All right, so we know that they're spirits, but yet we're drawn towards this thing called religion. And, I was immersed into it. Decades of my life. Every decade, figure it's like this for your life. I look at my life in days, not years, not decades, etc. It's how many days have I been on this planet? And as each decade passes, you begin to see things. I mean, for 10 years, that's 3,650 days of your life. Now, the average person, I'm reading a book, by the way. Interesting how all this is correlating. Highly recommend this book. There's another one I'm going to recommend. This one is The Gods of Eden and Operation High Jump. The guy who wrote this is Moshe Mason. Fantastic book. It takes what we have found in modern day science, and begins to apply it to the mythology of which all religions are based on, our beginning. Think about it. A religion doesn't have any need to be if you know your beginning. I mean, if we knew as our species who we are, where we came from, why we are the way we are, you would need no religion. You wouldn't. Those questions would be forever known, answered, would be probably known by the time you become cognitive in your reasoning, at whatever age that is. So this thing we have in us, and we can't understand it. We can understand our beginnings. We can't understand why we do the things we do to each other, why we inflict so much pain, why we lie, why we deceive one another. You know, it doesn't take very long for one to step back and just do an assessment of this species. I often question, why is there alien life here at all? I mean, intelligent alien life. If in fact, I do believe it exists. But my question is, why would of a superior intelligence ever want to immerse themselves in such barbarity as we do to ourselves? Homo sapiens. This book is predicated, the story is based with two scientists. One guy studies the nuclei, the neurons, the individual neurons in our brains. And folks, if you've never done a study, we're going to do one in depth. If we could only begin to understand from science how these neurons work. And when you begin to understand the study, and they do a good job in here, and they really lay out a good layman's course of the study of the anatomy of the cell of a neuron. And we don't know. It's a mystery. We do not know how it works. And here's the interesting thing. Every neuron in your brain, it has many, many receptors on the outside, look like tentacles. And this is how they move. And when an electric magnetic code passes by, if it's meant for that neuron, those receptors, those tentacles, will bring in that energy into the center of the nucleus of the neuron. Now, it only has a few remitters, and they're actually at the back end of the neuron. And what we don't understand is that when it sends this information out, it wraps it in a electromagnetic protector. And this becomes a courier that the energy, which is thought, is propelled. And what we don't understand is, how does the brain know how much energy to send as it pushes this, by the way, almost at the speed of light, along the synaptic pathways of our brain, and how it knows exactly where it's got to go, exactly how much energy it needs to get there. And when it gets there, it's only going to be received by a prepared receptor. That's us. This book is found that they go to Golbi Tepe, and this scientist, he happens to find a rock, picks it up, and it's obsidian, and they're doing and they find exactly where the four rivers spoken about in the Chaldean text, not Genesis, let's be honest, where Genesis got that story from. It's from the Epic of Gilgamesh. But anyway, the four rivers that meet. And it's not where we thought it's been. Anyway, they're looking for the fact that, think about this, if the tree of knowledge that woman supposedly ate from, it could not have been all knowledge. If it had been all knowledge, we would have known how to become immortal. The premise of this book is God. Every God was mortal at one time. Yeah. And this tree of life, it's a substance they ate from, and it gave them immortality. They carry it wherever they go. So the tree of knowledge could not have been all knowledge. So there's a problem right there. It could never have been the tree of knowledge. Maybe it could have been a tree of some knowledge, but it was not the tree of knowledge. Then the second part, what's about this tree of life? Now, we did a study in the Liber Lilith on my channel here. Many of you who are subscribers know this. And we found a different story about that tree of life. It's replete through Sumerian hieroglyphs, pictographs. The tree of life is represented in many different belief systems. The question becomes, well, what is it? Now, I love how this author has taken it, using modern day science, modern day geology, all the archaeological finds we found in Turkey now. We know something happened up there in Tepe. Something. These were not normal human beings. It's becoming very clear there was at one time a superior class of sapiens. Maybe they weren't even sapiens, they were bipedals. Much more intelligent than we are. Question is, what happened to them? Did the comet that hit the Earth 12,000, well, be almost 14,000 years now, did that cause them to leave? These are the questions. And anyway, as the book goes on to say, he had actually polished the stone, went back to the university where they're doing his studies, and it dropped off his desk and cracked open. And what they found in what is supposed to be a couple million-year-old quartz, they actually found a capsule, 2 of them. And they get and it's a liquid serum-like substance. And then under an electron microscope, lo and behold, what they find are human neuron cells. The second vial, when they looked at it, and this is where I met the book, was machines, nanotechnology, active machines in a rock that's supposed to be millions of years old, found right there at Gobet Tepe. So go figure. Yeah. It goes to show that is the tree of life, and what they're finding out in this book, and using, again, science, looking at the stories of the mythologies of all religions, of our beginnings. Folks, I had a fabulous day yesterday, met a number of people, engaged in some remarkable conversation, that we're hybrids. You and I, everyone seeing my image, everyone hearing my voice, you are a hybrid. You're not a pure human. Neither am I. There are no pure humans. There are no pure sapiens. That becomes a problem. You know, I'm having my genealogy done on the DNA. Someone said, well, you know, now the government has your DNA. Are you kidding me? They got your DNA already. I'm more curious just to see how my ancestry, what part of this migration of man did I come from? Excuse me, everyone. So, no true humans. That opens up a whole lot of questions. You know, when I started waking up and walking from Christianity, there were a few things that, man, I couldn't shake for years. And up until very recently, I've had people in my past who have dropped, you know, the seeds that now when I look at people, and we were in some pretty large crowds yesterday, I see a wholly different thing now. Not all humans are filled with the same substance, the same spirit. See, I always was under this illusion all spirits came from the same place. They don't. That means these bodies, these mud suits, if they're not all filled from the same source of spirit, then that opens up a whole new reality for all of us to think about. We're not all the same. It's just a fact. And so many of the books that are coming out now, one that I would also recommend, this one was a far out journey. And I do this because, folks, if you get into these books, they will open thoughts. They're a delight. They're an adventure. The gods of Eden break out the Elohim in a way. In a way that, well, let's just say this. If the word ever got out, Houston, we got a problem here. Because the whole matrix, the whole construct begins to rapidly unravel. And the thing about it is if my good friend and comrade in arms, Jeff Doherty, were here, we would get into discussion about the Elohims, as you know, as Jeff so famously calls them, the rat bastard. But the fact that we don't understand the Elohim from all these other pieces that you begin to look, I do believe they are a species. I do not know if they're bipedal. They may be in stature. I don't know. I know this. They were once mortal, like you and I. They figured out how to become immortal. Look what they did to our bodies. Think about this, folks. These bodies were designed to last at least 1,000 years. Harvard University last week released in a white paper, they have found the genetic code that turns on rejuvenation. So then that means someone deliberately did it to us. Deliberately cut our lifespan, our normal lifespans, by 1/10. And they did it gradually. This is what most people don't understand. When you start doing with genetics, it takes generations for the full effect to set in. And in our case, it took less than 400 years. Now, they give an interesting different take on the whole deluge situation. We were a mistake, you and I, humans. We weren't supposed to be here where we are. There have been multiple versions of us. Each one has failed. Some failed to progress. Some failed to develop. Some began to develop different attributes. And the evidence is very forthright. When we completed the Human Genome Project, we knew definitively that the stories of a creation of an Adam and Eve are a fallacy, inasmuch that it could never happen in what we have been told in a genealogy time struct. Didn't happen. It couldn't have happened that way. And the problem is, it's why religion doesn't want to deal with this, because it blows the whole story up. These bodies have been tampered with genetically. We know that. It's not a mystery anymore. The mystery is, who is in the kitchen? Who's the chef here? And every time we got close to finding this knowledge that they already know, it could be a very much a substance. It could be, who knows? We know it's tangible. We know it's real. But this is, by the way, there is a hormone which I found so interesting. Allow me to get it here. So this, it's telomerase. It's an enzyme. Folks, when medical science discovered this enzyme, here's what it does. They've been testing it on mice, and mice with Alzheimer's, holes in your brain. That's what Alzheimer's does. Calcifies the brains, and you begin to get holes in your, literally in the gray matter. Arthritic had been a black-haired mouse, and now it was completely white, barely able to walk. One injection of this telomerase enzyme, the holes in the brain, miraculously, they could watch it. The cell development disappeared. Within one day, the mouse was back to black, arthritis gone, and was able to outdo the younger mice, which would be equivalency to, in our case, a third of their lifespan. This mouse would become super mouse. Now imagine a species known as, we call them the Elohim, who had longevity. You see, knowledge can only come to us through longevity. They set the trap for us. Apparently, and we know the Tower of Babel existed. We know that building, that monument, whatever they were doing, existed. We have the measurements. We know how big it was. And we have it in our stories and our myths and our legends that they came down again to see what the hell man was up to. And damn it, if it didn't happen again. They tried to wipe us out. They are afraid of us. That's why they killed us en masse in this disaster we call the deluge. And when we got our act together again, well, then they came and did something equivalent to, well, a lobotomy. How they did it, we're not sure. We know our brains are very susceptible to electromagnetic fields. We know frequencies can affect moods. We know through Manchurian candidate type scenarios, the brain can be very easily manipulated. And so then they came down and did these next rape of us, our species, and confused our tongue. Why? Why are we such a threat? You know, as I look at this, folks, no God has ever manifested before humanity. None. You know why they won't? We'd kill it. We would. Half would go and believe and worship it. The other half would say it was the antithesis. Yet, we divide ourselves on unseen gods. You know, can I be very candid with you? Every holy book out there is the result of channeling. Was it delusions of a madman that would write those words? I don't know. I know this, that if it came from a higher source, that's channeling. But today, that's shunned in most circles. So, well, I didn't expect this to go in this direction, but it's very interesting. Because it would appear, no matter how you want to come at this from your point of view, the mistake that we are, humanity, we are a mistake. And, you know, people can argue with me on that, but you can't argue the genetics. You cannot come, and I'll invite you on the show. You tell me why we're a pure creation. The science will call you a liar. Not me. When you cannot figure out that you ain't who you are, sweetheart, we're creatures, we don't even understand ourselves. And yet, we'll certainly do a hatchet job on a person because of an expressed belief. Isn't that amazing? Because a person has a different point of view or actually begins to grow. You know, if you've got the same point of view you have today that you had 10 years ago, you're not growing. You're stagnant. You know what happens to stagnant water? It stinks. Nothing grows in it. People don't like that to hear this. The vast majority of people don't read. And once they get into what they think is a safety zone, they'll do everything they can to stay there. Steve, what great truth have you know, there's great truths from everybody. Everybody has a great truth. Let me tell you something I learned decades ago from a very famous evangelist. Your revelation isn't everybody's revelation of truth. Just the truth. We all have different things and different points of view, but I caution when we say truth, because truth is what you're saying is a finality, a fact. And I've not found any truth to be a finality, a fact. We're a lying species. We lie to ourselves. We lie to each other. We lie in our religions. We lie in our political beliefs. We lie, we lie, we lie. It's what we do. Well, you know, Steve, all I can say, whatever the great work is, many religions have been built on that very thesis. Blazing River, I agree with you. You know, I challenge anyone not to have a thought in your head. Try to clear your mind of any thoughts. You can't do it. And these are the things, and it's why we've got religion. It's why we have today, Sunday, in churches, all around the world. I don't think synagogues, that would have been yet last night. But the point is, people try to come in and find some solace in the chaos. And the chaos is just getting more intense. I don't see any improvements. I don't. I wish I did. I wish that there was, great enlightenment sweeping, our species. But I don't see that. And there's a reason for it. And it appears that it's genetically engineered into us. And that's the strange thing. This new enzyme, if it proves to be what it proves to be, guess what? This is the fountain of youth. Now, the thing that's postulated in these books that I'm reading, if man does discover what the gods have already discovered, immortality in the physical body, we can't grow spiritually. I mean, that's very self-evident. In 10,000 years of written records, we have not grown spiritually. We've bifurcated ourselves into so many different factions, it's hard to find any unity. And if it's programmed genetically into us, then that becomes, I think, the biggest challenge of our species. Who did it to us? Don't know. I read and 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 I read. No one that I have come across has any answers. At least one that you could say is in fact a true answer. It's an opinion. And that's what we all have, our opinions. If a God were to manifest itself, let's say we build the great computer. Well, we have. We've already built our oracle, but one that we could actually definitively all come together and unify. They don't want us ever to be unified. That's what I keep on seeing over and over again. The biggest threat that our species poses to any god or gods, archons, demigods, whoever they may be, we present a threat to them. And I like to know who's the one messing with the genetic code. I was doing some reading last night, and we're now getting into the Human Genome Project 2, dealing with the mitochondrial DNA, which is feminine, by the way. That's where we all come from, is the feminine root beginning, not the male, the female. And they're finding things that any way you look at this, from a geneticist point of view, and I was reading a number of pieces that they're finding now in the mitochondrial DNA, we've been jacked with. It's very self-evident. There could be no God sitting on some throne, some white-haired, Caucasian dude. No. We've been messed genetically. Today, there's no reason for a human being to have any disease. None. From a genetic DNA point of view, It shouldn't be happening. We should never be growing old, at least not at the rate that we do. Our cells are designed to regenerate endlessly, but not us. Something has changed within us. They altered it. And it's very clear that the geneticists, whoever created us, screwed it up. Otherwise, there would be no reason for the genetic code to break down. Now, we have environmental issues that have to be factored into that statement. And then today, humans walking on this planet are exposed to more DNA damage than previous generations or species that we know of, because of the weakening magnetopause of our Earth. More and more cosmic rays are now entering into the Earth's atmosphere, and regrettably, now we're finding that the cosmic rays go both ways. The Earth is emitting them, and we're taking them. And when they hit in the human body, that DNA strand is forever destroyed. It's obliterated. That's why we're finding cancers. Do you know, there was an article out this week that said that cardiologists worldwide are alarmed because they're seeing something they can't recognize and they don't know why. Heart attack victims now in their teens. Teens dying from cardiac arrest, arteriosclerosis, diseased blood vessels in teenagers. The 20-somethings now have, in many cases, the same type of plaque buildup that you would expect to see in someone in their 60s or 70s. They did a study on fast food from 1982 to a study that they did last year in 2018. Do you want to know something? Here are some of the things they found. The portions and the sizes are bigger. The amount of sugar and raw processed foods, in other words, processed, now compared to a meal that you could have bought at any burger quick joint, that burger in 1982 was more healthier for you, so was those fries, than what you're eating today. The volume of food overall that is now being served in restaurants to the youth because of the genetic enhanced ingredients are causing people in their age groups to have heart attacks. I mean, I don't know about you. I find that alarming. And at the same time, we're talking about they have found potentially the elixir of youth. To think that potentially, you know, the problem why it's not out there is Big Pharma can't make any money off of it. They make money off of treating you, not curing you, treating you, helping you to maintain. Ouch. I know it sucks. It really does. I mean, it's nuts. And I guess the question I struggle with, would it be into our benefit? How fortuitous would it be for humanity to expand life to 1,000 years? Or to have the technology to where you can grow, regenerate any limb, any organ in your body? Would the robot wars become more real then? Would AI see this as a threat? You know, now they're finding out that electronic sentient, they're finding out that they are developing biases, prejudices. How does a machine develop a bias? That's a question one has to ask. I'm just looking at some of the comments on here. I tell you, if you folks read these books, these two, they're great fiction books. But yeah, you'll learn a lot of science on this whole thing. Just getting into proteins, how they manipulated the proteins in our body. And today, due to environmental effects, food, water, air, the genetic enhancement, modifications, and alterations of our environment, we are our environment, these bodies. What the environment is, we become. And I still contend we're living in an age, wherever Paul got the message, we are definitely living in the age of pharmacia, pharmacology. Yeah, odd that he prophesied that the day would come when all of mankind would be under the Greek word, which we get our word pharmacy from, pharmaceuticals. It's happening. We are a drugged species. We legalize the drugs that we like. We tax the ones that we enjoy, and we deify the ones that take out of control. And it's true. Today, look at adolescents' diabetes. More children, starting at the age of 5 and 6, are now having to take diabetic medicine. Wow. I mean, folks, I did a video called Checkmate, and I took a lot of grief for that. But you know what? That was prophetic, because everything is showing that something ain't right here, folks. Something just isn't right. I'm sure if Jeff was here, we'd be all over on top of this. But I'm just pointing it from one particular point of view, our so-called beginnings. And then we see these anomalies show up in what we call birth defects. Again, there's no reason for these bodies to be diseased. These bodies, apparently, in the way that it was originally designed or constructed, I don't know. I've yet to see the original blueprints. I imagine they were very impressive. Were designed to be self-maintained. Even giving the factor of variables in the environment. Whether that be vegetarian, whether that be meat, whatever it is. Humans have to be able to have protein to survive. If you don't have protein, you're out of here. Your brain will begin to become mush. Your muscles will become apathetic, where they ain't doing anything. But the point is, my adventure is that I want to find out who the cats are. So is it true that God is nothing more than a mortal that happened to find knowledge, longevity? How smart would you be if you were 900 years old today? Imagine. I don't know if the planet could hold enough human beings. I mean, if we could live our normal lifespans of what these bodies were apparently designed to do of 1,000 years, I think population become a real problem. Maybe that's the impetus that gets us off this planet. I don't know. You know, they put a little thing around our planet. You don't hear it talked about it, but it's a challenge for all spacecraft. It's a challenge for us. We're finding out now that humans in space, because of the faulty DNA, the genetic code, do you know what the number one problem with astronauts is? Herpes. The vast majority of astronauts that spend any length of time in space, in this case in our upper, well, actually it'd be in the lower atmosphere if the atmosphere of Earth extends 1,000,000 miles out. But in any case, let's say either the Chinese space station or the International Space Station, herpes. They're finding that outside this Earth, down here in the terra firma, that the genetic codes begin to start unlocking. The immune system begins to act really odd. So, I mean, these are some of the things that present problems for us. The Van Allen radiation belt, it's around our planet. It's one of those mysteries you don't hear talk about. But every spacecraft that we shoot through there, that's the first shielding problem that we have. And it's a big problem for human beings as well. So I don't know. I mean, are they poisoning us now? Don't worry about a war. We'll just continue to feed them this stuff. And within 2 or 3 generations, there'll be a mass die-off anyway. I don't know. But it's apparently becoming very clear scientifically. And then if we mix, you know, theology, philosophy into the mix, you have to step back and go, maybe they are afraid of us. Maybe instead of trying to do a mass kill-off, what they called the deluge the last time, they've just programmed us genetically to self-destruct. I mean, that's why you find the evolution of transhumanism becoming so popular. We now have the ability, we're just that far away, folks, of transferring human consciousness to a silicon, or probably now it's not even silicon, it's DNA-based circuitry. So they could take your DNA, build a circuitry system that would be adaptive to your particular frequency of consciousness and download that into a storage device. I don't know, is that how it's done? Once you do the conversion, the transmutation, and you go live on the internet, then you reach out into every place that you can go. And if in fact space receives our frequencies, radio, television, otherwise, can a spirit that becomes transmutable into a memory chip, once it's electrified into a network, expand out beyond? Is that the Holy Grail? Right now, it's a crapshoot. We hope that upon death, our consciousness, our memories, because that's all consciousness actually is the recognition of the moment and the memories. And if the memories are obliterated, what happens to consciousness? And so if you have the opportunity now to download your memories, knowing that even physical death will not stop them anymore, regardless of what the gray matter does, the neurons, as death happens, that's why you see the lights. Yeah. That's why everyone sees lights when they're dying or if they're near death. It's because their neurons are exploding in their brains. And it's literally producing sparks of light, excuse me. Literally. I was talking to my brother about the fact that the human brain now knows that it stays alive in a sense. If alive is electrical impulses being passed through, for some up to 22 minutes. Are you then in a different place of reality at that point? Are you in between the living and the spirits? Is that what purgatory is gotten from? Is that point? I'm just reading some of the comments. Yeah, I was reading Jensen's comments. Very true. I mean, that is the goal. That, by the way, the tech titans, aren't we interested? We use the term titan now. They get mortality. They firmly get it, baby. And they got the bucks. They've got the tech. They rule the technology. And I doubt we will not know until 20, maybe 30 years later, after the achievement has been accomplished. I have a sense it's already been accomplished. I believe that there has been a literal transference of what we would call biochemical organic matter, which is our brains that produce the neurons of where we have the memories. I am convinced that they have gone beyond the alpha stage. I think they may be very well into beta by now. Imagine mortals today, as corrupt as we are, becoming immortals. Maybe that's where all the stories of the gods fighting against one another, fighting man, battles. Maybe they're just as insane as we are. I don't know. I don't think for our species that we're ready for immortality. I think if we achieved immortality in the current state of consciousness that we are today, we will destroy ourselves. And if we've come to this point where we can develop technology where death would never actually come, are we seeing a fulfillment of another old prophecy? Imagine a technology, nanotechnology, infiltrating all of our bodies, where we've now switched on the genetic mechanism that it's going to regenerate no matter what. Death would become elusive. Imagine a brain blown out by blunt force trauma or whatever, and then regenerating itself. Are these the truths we once knew before? Are these the traps that we've walked into before? I wonder. Because I think this is a trap. And I got a sense we've been here before. Something tells me. And I don't think that the last time we were here, it turned out really good for us. I don't think so. I keep on looking for this nirvana, Elysium. I don't know. I was having a discussion with the doctor yesterday, and we got into the fact about death. And I explained to him that we look at death wrong. It's not death, it's birth. And he said, well, explain that to me. And I said, well, the fact that once we emerge into this death realm, we're surrounded by death. We're surrounded by decay. We immerse ourselves into the fact that once we're here, we know we're going to be leaving. I said, that can't be life. I said, that's an illusion. And he looked at me, this man of many, many decades of experience. And he says, I think you're onto something there. He says, it's so true. He says, I deal with it every day. He said, the body itself eats itself. Did you know that? Most likely when you die, You're going to be dying because your body is consuming itself. And I said, if we taught this differently, if we taught every child coming in, you're in a death realm, understand that everything you see here is an illusion. It's dying. It regenerates itself, but it dies again. And what you are to do while you're in here is to learn your talents, etc., etc. Knowing that that time of departure is not the death part departure, but it's actually the birth departure. Anyway, I've gone over my time. Well, I hope you've had fun. Now, 2 people didn't have fun. That's all right. You know, can't please everybody. Don't want to. You know, if everyone had the same opinion, it would become boring. Well, Jeff, missed you, buddy. Get here next week. Folks, thank you. This has been a great discussion. I'm going to go back and listen to this myself. It's part of this. I don't know. I don't know if this is awakening. I don't know if that's even a term. Awakening implies that you're, you know, waking up to a different reality. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But all I do know is this, is that I am more convinced than ever that this is, in fact, a holographic universe. This is not reality. And they keep saying that this is a prison planet. I'm not buying that either. I'll listen to it, I'll study it, and I'll look at it. But boy, something tells me, don't buy it, Steiger. You're going to be totally surprised when you get over there. May it be so for all of us, right? Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for gracing us with your time and your energy. Jeff and I appreciate it. Make sure that check out Jeff's channel over there at the Christian Whistleblower. Subscribe if you're not. We thank you for enriching our lives, and we just invoke much favor, love, and light into yours. And yeah, this may be a crazy place, folks, but I think in the midst of chaos comes order. I don't think it's the other way around. I don't think order invokes chaos. And chaos may be nothing more than the ether itself. We consider it chaos because that's how we would view it. And humans like to have, we are creatures of habit, you know? Most people resist change, never knowing that change is the inevitable of all things. But you have to admit, you like laying in your bed, right? You know, we all do. All right, folks, be good to yourself. Love yourself, because in the end, remember, the only sin that you're ever going to be held accountable for is the sin that you've done against yourself. Learn to forgive yourself, learn to love yourself, and you'll learn to love and forgive others much quickly. All right, folks, we'll see you here next Sunday over on Jeff's channel. Have a great week. We'll see you tomorrow on my channel as we continue with the alien interview. I have another letter from Source that I will be reading. And hey, you know, pretty deep stuff, so I appreciate it. All right, folks, thank you again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.